After alternating bouts of heavy rain and scorching sun, July had come to an end, and the sun in August was even more intense. Everywhere you went, just a couple of steps outdoors would make you break into a sweat. Jianru and Lu Cheng had now even cancelled their afternoon stall, always waiting for Jianxing to come home before they took off. On this day, Jianxing had the rare chance to nap for 2 hours on the table. When she woke up, there was no one in the bookstore. It was empty and gave her a sense of loneliness wrapped in silence. This was the first time that she felt abandoned by time after waking up from a deep sleep. She sat in front of the desk staring at the entrance, where outside the glass door, the setting sun was blood red, the light even more dense than at noon. Jianxing waited for a while. Zhang Baishen still hadn't returned. She had no option but to make a phone call to him. As soon as Zhang Baishen picked up the phone, he asked, "Awake?" Jianxing said, "When are you coming back? I'm going to leave." There was some noise on Zhang Baishen's end. It seemed like he was going from one place to another. When things around him quieted down, he said, "You can go home now. Don't bother about the shop. There aren't many people coming in and out of the school." Jianxing agreed and hung up the call and then left. Ever since Jianru and Lu Cheng switched to the night schedule, Jianxing had started to carry her phone back home again. To avoid running into Jianru and Lu Cheng, Jianxing took small alleys all the way home, and when she arrived, she found Jianru and Lu Cheng had not yet left. They were arguing about something. Jianxing stood at the door and eavesdropped for a while before she understood. It seemed like Lu Cheng wanted to find some work to do on his own. Jianru said, "You can forget about it. Won't you just be causing more trouble?" Lu Cheng was insistent. His such an iron will made Jianru feel annoyed. Regardless of whether his motive was to earn money, his attitude had already offended Jianru. Jianru threw something onto the car with a clang sound, which set off the neighbor's dog barking in response, and at this moment, Jianxing opened the door. Just as she entered the house, Jianru grumbled a sentence in a disharmonious tone. "Everyone's trying to reach for the sky. None of your mute mouths can fart a good word." Jianxing remained silent. This made Jianru even more unhappy. She asked Jianxing, "When things at home are a mess, do you even think to open your mouth and ask about them? Or do you need everyone to die off first for you to be happy?" Lu Cheng said unhappily, "Why are you speaking to a child like that?" Jianru raised her voice even more. "Child? How old is she? What haven't I done when I was her age? I held up half the sky for the family. What era are we in now, and why do you keep wanting her to compare herself to you?" Lu Cheng said, "Jianru, what does 'what era are we in now' mean? Which era does not need to eat or drink? Which era can afford to raise a mute? She gets it from you. Both father and daughter are the same." In August, even the evenings were still very hot. Jianxing felt lightheaded after walking all this way. Now listening to Jianru and Lu Cheng arguing, she was even starting to see stars in her vision. She didn't want to be concerned about what they were arguing about. She walked straight towards her room. When she passed by Jianru, Jianru suddenly tugged her, making her stagger, and she lost her balance. Crack! A sound rang out. A mobile phone had fallen to the ground. It was not a high-quality phone. The battery was directly knocked out on impact. Seeing the dismantled phone lying on the ground, all three family members were stunned. Jianxing was the first to react. She squatted down to pick up the phone, and the next moment felt a jolt of pain on her scalp. With a hiss, she was abruptly jerked up by Jianru. Jianru's face was flushed with anger. She shouted, "Where did this phone come from?" Jianxing did not respond. Jianru's grip tightened, causing Jianxing to wince and reach for her hair. Lu Cheng, unable to stand by, stepped in to intervene. Although Lu Cheng was a man, years of physical disability and hardship did not make him any bulkier. He looked almost as slender as Jianxing. Jianru easily shoved him to the ground. Even after falling, Lu Cheng didn't forget to reach for the phone. He trembled as if trying to protect his daughter's last bit of dignity. However, Jianxing found it difficult to breathe. Even though Jianru was pulling her hair, it felt like her throat was being strangled. Her face and eyes were turning red, but somehow she managed to break free from Jianru. Jianru swung her hand and slapped Jianxing. The sound was so loud, it could have overshadowed the barking of the dogs next door. "Hey, what are you hitting the child for?" Lu Cheng punched the ground in anger. Jianru was so angry that her chest was heaving. She pointed at Jianxing, bent over to snatch Lu Cheng's phone. Jianxing, who had been silent despite being slapped and hair pulled, now tried to stop Jianru. Are you crazy? Jianru yelled at Jianxing. Only then did Jianxing spoke. This phone is mine. Where did you get it? Whose money bought it? Your father's. Oh, that charger wasn't bought by your father, was it? So it's yours? Are you and your father trying to deceive me? Jianru shouted at her. No, this is mine. Jianxing's tongue was numb, heart racing, yet she felt a strange sense of satisfaction as she looked at Jianru and replied, This is mine. Where did you get the money, I ask you? Where did you get the money? Jianru demanded to know. Jianxing, with twinkling eyes and a tight jaw, replied, It's none of your business. Jianru didn't waste any time and slapped Jianxing again. Upon witnessing this, Lu Cheng immediately got up and pushed away Jianru. He was trembling with rage, stamping his foot and shouting, Try hitting her once more. Are you going to hit me? Jianru asked incredulously. Just try hitting her once more. Lu Cheng was outraged. Jianxing stood behind Lu Cheng, barely able to feel the pain in her face. She just felt dizzy. The sound of dogs barking, a woman yelling, a man trembling. It seemed like her world had always been like this, as if she had barely survived between the cracks. She had always performed well in school, but she never held any lofty aspirations, because she understood that some things were deeply ingrained in her. She yearned for freedom, but she knew the price she would have to pay could be high. The last ray of light fell. The sun disappeared, and the evening heat seemed to plaster a layer of paste on people's skin, thin but irritatingly sticky. Jianxing quietly took the phone from Lu Cheng's hand and walked away. Jianru yelled from behind, Jianxing, if you dare to leave, never come back again. Jianxing did not look back. She left the alley and put the phone back together. Unsure of where to go, Jianxing turned around and started walking in the opposite direction of Renmin Road. She continued to walk until she reached the outskirts of the city. The West Sha River was nearby. Jianxing remembered her first national day after entering high school, when Xu Zhengqing and Lin Yule had invited her to go to Sha River. Jianxing had never been there before. There were a lot of people. The scent of summer nights was often strong. The aroma of barbecue, beer, girls and boys being egged on to come together, soda in glass bottles, and the smell of cigarettes. Feeling like she had accidentally entered another world, Jianxing was on the outside looking in, yet at the center of it. She felt more abandoned than ever. The phone vibrated in her hand. Jianxing looked at the caller ID. It was Chen Yanbei. Seeing the long road ahead, she chose a seat on the steps by the roadside. She answered the call but remained silent. Chen Yanbei spoke hastily. Where are you? I'm coming to find you. Your father just phoned me, Jianxing. You need to understand, if it starts to hurt, that's the process of detachment. The first step to independence is detachment. You're beginning to find yourself, do you understand? Jianxing eyed the dust covering the ground. She blinked, softly asking, When did you start communicating with my father? Chen Yanbei paused before speaking. Since you started having trouble sleeping. She hastily explained, Jianxing, don't overthink this. I'm not snitching or running to your parents with every single issue like a little schoolboy. I'm just worried. You're so far away, you see. I need to be reassured. I asked your uncle. He knows everything. He's hiding it to help you, and he won't tell your mother. I know, Jianxing raised her head. I know everything. She knew everything. She just did not understand how some people could live life to such an extent. Wasn't she trying hard enough? She was putting in so much effort. As cars constantly zoomed by, they kicked up dust. The thin layer of it felt like a dream. This was not a city area, and the aging population was quite serious here. There were elderly men and women sitting at every doorway, unfazed by the heat. In the midst of the thin dust, Jianxing spotted a familiar figure. Without thinking, she opened her eyes widely and rose to her feet. While Chen Yanbei was saying something on the phone, Jianxing was not able to hear anything. She was simply staring at one direction, at that figure, her posture, the way she walked, even the thin shirt she was wearing. It looked like... Jianxing hoarsely let out two silent words. In a daze, she walked towards the road when suddenly she was yanked backward. A truck zoomed past right in front of her. Layers of dust were flung up, making it impossible for her to breathe. With dust in her eyes, tears spontaneously flowed out. A person beside her screamed, "Why aren't you looking when you cross the road? You're so big already, what if something happens?" Jianxing pushed the person aside without a word. Then she began to run, crossing the road. The person had disappeared. Dumbstruck, Jianxing looked around, tears blurring her vision. She wiped away her tears, the pain of the grime and tears intermingling on her face. She let out a hoarse shout, "Grandma! Grandma!" There was no reply. The honking of passing cars was loud. There was still a lot of dust. Jianxing, rooted to the spot, was suddenly overcome with grief. With her eyes wide open and bent over, she clasped her knees and gasped for breath. Tears started to fall, one heavy drop after another. In her blurry state, a thought came to her. Grandma is really gone. From now on, she wouldn't appear in her world anymore. That indistinct figure seemed to be saying goodbye to her. Her phone vibrated again, one call after another, non-stop. When Jianxing answered, her face was still streaked with tears. Her voice was so husky it emerged as a whisper while she sat by the roadside, one hand covering her face. Tears fell through the gaps between her fingers and rolled onto the ground amongst the dust. Chen Yanbei asked, "Where are you? Tell me first where you are." Jianxing sniffled. Chen Yanbei paused. "Are you crying?" Jianxing sobbed, speaking out his name through her crying. "Chen Yanbei." Chen Yanbei responded, "I'm here." Jianxing's sobs wouldn't cease. With her eyes closed, she said, "I'm sick." Chen Yanbei replied, "Then we'll see a doctor." Jianxing continued talking as though she didn't hear him. "I still can't sleep. My head hurts so much. My face hurts too. I really want to see the sea. I don't want to always stay in Hexian. Chen Yanbei, do you know? I really like him so much." But as expected, in this lifetime he would never know. There were no clear suicidal tendencies, but there were long-term severe insomnia, slow thinking, and loss of appetite. The final diagnosis from the hospital was moderate to severe depression. Jianxing was not at all surprised by this result. She held her diagnosis slip and sat in the hospital's flower bed. The night air in summer was hardly refreshing, but the hospital was still bustling with people, as if the heat was the least of their worries. Jianxing leaned back slightly, gazing at the bright moon above. "Tomorrow will be a good day," said Chen Yanbei, coming over with the medication from behind. Jianxing replied, "It should be." They had a casual dinner of chonlixiang wonton near the county hospital. After finishing his meal, Chen Yanbei lit up a cigarette and said, "From my memory, they didn't have a shop in past years. They just opened this year." Jianxing added a spoonful of chili to her bowl. Chen Yanbei gave her a glance but did not say anything and continued smoking. It usually took Chen Yanbei about 6 or 7 minutes to finish a cigarette. By the time he finished one, Jianxing had about finished her meal too. She put down her spoon. "Shall we go?" Chen Yanbei threw the cigarette but into the dustbin nearby and asked, "Will you sleep with me?" Jianxing shook her head. "I'll go home." Chen Yanbei furrowed his brows, clearly disagreeing. "You are going back home in this state?" Jianxing replied, "She won't do anything to me." Chen Yanbei looked at her without saying a word. Jianxing smiled and said, "She treats me as herself. She won't harm me, really." Chen Yanbei frowned even deeper. "What about you?" "Me?" Jianxing said, "I am indeed her daughter now. I still have to go to school." After a moment of silence, Chen Yanbei cursed under his breath. The medication was expensive and paid for by Chen Yanbei, who had almost exhausted a month's salary on it. Jianxing paid him with her tutoring fees, planning to make up the rest later. Chen Yanbei didn't stand on ceremony. After all, he needed the money more than Jianxing did. "What about your phone?" Jianxing said, "I'll keep it." Chen Yanbei stayed silent for a while after her reply, then conceded, "Jianxing, why not? Forget it?" Jianxing's movements paused. She looked up to meet Chen Yanbei's gaze. Chen Yanbei looked away, not meeting her eyes. "You were right, you still need to go to school. Tuition fees, living expenses, housing, food, you will still need her for all of these. This isn't worth it for just a phone." Jianxing resumed tidying up the medication and responded, "I did not do all this for the phone." Chen Yanbei said, "I know." Jianxing replied, "It's really all right. With regards to schooling, she takes it more seriously than me." Despite saying that, Jianxing was still somewhat uncertain deep down. She separated the medication and put them into her pocket, making it inconspicuous. When she got home, it was about 8 or 9 p.m. The path extended to her doorstep. The moonlight disappeared at the end. Stepping on the cobblestones, Jianxing walked unhurriedly. When she reached her doorstep, she found the door slightly ajar. The dogs next door were probably asleep and no longer barking. There were no cacophonous sounds in the yard either. Everything was quiet, as if nothing had happened. Jianxing pushed the door open further, the moonlight suddenly spreading across the landing, and carefully shut the door behind her. The light by the door disappeared. However, there was still a lot of light in the yard. Jianxing walked over and saw Jianru sitting there. Jianru looked up as she heard noises, but a few seconds later, she looked down as if she hadn't seen anything. Jianxing pressed her lips together, walked over and called out, "Mom?" Jianru made no sound. Jianxing had not expected a response, so she asked, "Where's my dad?" This time, Jianru responded. She raised her head and asked, "Jianxing, between your dad and me, who do you follow?" Jianxing was puzzled. "What?" Jianru stood up. She wasn't tall, but years of hard work and eating more than the average person had inevitably altered her figure. Her hair was haphazardly tied up at the back of her head, leaving her face fully exposed, her cheekbones and eyelids slightly swollen. When she stood up, she was like a mountain. She spoke in a very calm tone, "Your dad and I are getting a divorce. He has moved out. We're going to finalize the divorce tomorrow. Between your dad and me, who will you go with?" Jianxing's eyes turned red, her voice sounding as though it was being smothered but struggling to get out, muffled and husky, "Because of me." Jianru scoffed, "You think you're worthy?" Jianxing didn't say anything else. Jianru asked again, "Who will you go with?" She was forcing Jianxing to give an answer right then and there, but Jianxing could only ask, "Where's my dad?" Jianru asked, "Who do you choose?" Jianxing asked, "Where is my dad?" Both of them, mother and daughter, shared the same stubbornness. Jianru was so infuriated by Jianxing that she glared at her. Then she regained her usual domineering demeanor and yelled, "How would I know? He can go die wherever he wants. You're looking for him? What for? What use is he? Can he afford to provide for your college education? If he can even afford your high school fees, I would be grateful." Jianru wasn't wrong. Lu Cheng could not afford it. He was struggling to make ends meet himself. How could Jianxing burden him further? So Jianxing chose to stay with Jianru. The next morning, Jianru left the house without making breakfast. She told Jianxing to buy something to eat before her tutoring, but Jianxing followed her shortly after she left. The Civil Affairs Bureau was on Jinghu Middle Road, not far from Jianxing's home. Jianru was probably not in the right frame of mind and didn't notice Jianxing following her all the way. When they got to the venue, Jianxing saw Lu Cheng first. He hadn't changed his clothes and his hair was greasy after sleeping somewhere else the previous night. He was sitting on the stone steps next to the bureau, smoking a cigarette. Jianxing halted and hid on the side. She saw Jianru walking over to Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng looked up at her. They spoke to each other, and remarkably, Lu Cheng even smiled afterwards. He then tossed his cigarette butt and stood up with some difficulty. The two of them stopped speaking, turned around, and entered the service area. Jianxing didn't remember how long she waited, but when Jianru and Lu Cheng came out again, neither of them said a word. Not even a farewell, they just turned around and went their separate ways. Having never experienced a separation, much less a marriage, Jianxing didn't understand what it felt like to have a child with a stranger, spend many years together and then part ways. But as she watched Lu Cheng's hunched, frail, and even somewhat short figure get further away, she could discern a word on his shoulders, catharsis. She couldn't help but chase after him. "Dad." Lu Cheng stopped, turned around, and smiled. Jianxing asked the same question. "Was it because of me?" Lu Cheng asked with a smile. "Have you had breakfast?" Jianxing shook her head. Lu Cheng said, "Let's go, let me treat you to breakfast." They went to a breakfast shop at the entrance of No. 5 primary school, where Jianxing had studied since 6th grade. Lu Cheng ordered a bowl of soup for Jianxing, a bowl of porridge for himself, and also 2 sesame buns and a basket of dumplings. Jianxing had no appetite, but Lu Cheng had a good one. As he ate, he said, "It has nothing to do with you, don't overthink it." Jianxing asked, "Then why?" Lu Cheng did not say why, he only began talking about their grandmother. In his youth, Lu Cheng didn't receive much attention at home. Saying that his parents didn't love him was not an exaggeration. When he was 16 or 17, he started to work independently in the town. Once during a heavy snow without an umbrella, it was a motherly woman who walked him to the crossroads. Later, in a neighboring village, he met that woman again. A matchmaker said that the woman was a widow with a difficult home life. She had a daughter who didn't want to get married. Lu Cheng said he was willing, and that's how he entered the Jian family and gained a mother-in-law. Jianru had a bad temper, but Levi Cheng didn't mind. After they had a daughter, Levi Cheng began to worry secretly. He was afraid that his daughter would learn Jianru's temper. On his daughter's 3rd birthday, his mother-in-law held the little girl and blew out the birthday cake candles, saying with a smile, "Our Jianxing, if she can't be gentle enough, then be kind." Levi Cheng was relieved. Later, he broke his leg. During his argument with Jianru in the hospital, she convinced him with just one sentence. "Aren't you taking care of your daughter anymore? Are you forgetting about our mother? Aren't you responsible? You're just considering your useless pride." He had to do it. He kept doing it until his mother-in-law was gone and his daughter began to have her own consciousness. Then Levi Cheng realized that his days in Jian's family had come to an end. "When Grandma told me you have a mobile phone, I was surprised. I wondered where you got the money from. Then I remembered, it must be that kid Chen Yunbei." Levi Cheng said, "You must work hard for this university entrance examination, for your own sake." Before parting with Levi Cheng, Jian Xing, for some reason, suddenly asked, "Dad, did Grandma say anything else to you?" Levi Cheng paused, looked up at Jian Xing. Jian Xing felt that what he was about to say was very important. She stared at Levi Cheng, saw him put down his chopsticks and said, "Jian Xing, the matter of love is difficult to judge, but no matter how it is judged, it can't be separated from reality and worldliness. Your grandparents are like this, your mom and I are like this too, do you understand?" Jian Xing frowned, felt that Levi Cheng's words were out of context and did not directly answer her question. He seemed to have something to say. Jian Xing didn't understand. "Dad, all Grandma said was that she regrets not being able to see you grow up safely." On the way home, all Jian Xing could see was Levi Cheng's hesitant expression. Unfortunately, after so many years, she didn't know Levi Cheng well enough to guess what exactly he was referring to. When she reached the crossroads square of the theater, she was about to turn the corner when she lifted her head and stopped. At the corner of a mobile phone store, Xu Zhengqing and a school-aged girl were standing there. The girl looked very young. Jian Xing pursed her lips, was about to turn around, when Xu Zhengqing saw her. "What a coincidence," Xu Zhengqing said. "You're up so early." Jian Xing pulled at her lips. I have some stuff to take care of." She glanced at the person next to him. Xu Zhengqing said, "This is my cousin. She just graduated from junior high school, here to buy a phone." Jian Xing nodded her head. Xu casually asked, "How's your summer vacation going?" Jian Xing paused, then said, "It's going quite well." They were not close, and their brief exchange was as much as they could muster. Jian Xing was the one to initiate the goodbye, and Xu Zhengqing did not attempt to retain her. It seemed like no one wanted to hold on to something in any of her goodbyes. Summer was still ongoing, maybe because a divorce is a major thing. Jianru indeed no longer paid attention to Jian Xing's phone usage. And Jian Xing still went to the bookstore every day. You'll understand when you grow up in this world, nothing is more important than safety and health. Zhang Bishan lay in the lounge chair, speaking with a hint of gravity in his tone. A month had passed, and Zhang Bishan's hair had grown long. He disliked the heat, so he borrowed a hair tie from Jian Xing to tie his hair up. Lying down with his hair up was inconvenient, so he tied it on top of his head. He looked quite funny, especially when he spoke sincerely with that hairstyle. Jian Xing gave a polite chuckle and responded with a non-committal M. Zhang Bishan deliberately sighed loudly, acting like an exasperated mentor. Jian Xing gave up on her homework and made casual conversation. "Isn't it almost time for the semester to start for you?" Zhang Bishan stretched both arms above his head. "I don't know." "Huh?" Jian Xing questioned. "You don't know when your semester starts?" Zhang Bishan stated, "Didn't I tell you? I'm on a break from university." Jian Xing remembered the many cautionary remarks he had made and hesitantly inquired, "Are you ill?" Zhang Bishan gave a scoff. "Did I cause someone else to fall ill?" Jian Xing said in confusion, "Cause?" Zhang Bishan chuckled twice, hands clenching into fists. Jian Xing spoke hesitantly. "You're a university student and you're still getting into fights?" Zhang Bishan responded, "Is there an age limit for fighting now? There is only a reason for a fight." Jian Xing gave a simple "oh," then fell silent. Zhang Bishan, puzzled, said, Isn't the normal conversation supposed to move to asking about the reason? What does your mean? Jianxing asked. Why did you fight then? Zhang Bishan gave a secretive smile. That's a secret. Even Xu Zhengqing asked me, but I didn't tell him. The sudden mention of Xu Zhengqing caught Jianxing off guard and she visibly stiffened. When she came to her senses, she quickly lowered her head and gave a hurried response. Seemingly unfazed, Zhang Bishan dug deeper into the awkward topic. I already know your secret. Why don't we reciprocate? Let me tell you mine. Jianxing wasn't particularly interested. Then she heard Zhang Bishan say, because I was cuckolded. Jianxing looked up in surprise. Zhang Bishan commented self-mockingly, unexpected, isn't it? Even someone as dashing as me could get cuckolded. Jianxing asked, she didn't like you. The smile on Zhang Bishan's face disappeared as he stared at the ceiling, essentially asking himself, yeah, did she not like me? Jianxing thought for a moment. Zhang Bishan had probably asked himself that question many times. Unexpectedly, he continued to say, she liked me too much. This answer took Jianxing by surprise. She liked me for many years, Zhang Bishan added. Jianxing was startled. She liked me since middle school. She chose to study medicine in university for me because our family are all medical practitioners. Indeed, my major is also medicine, Zhang Bishan continued. We ended up in different universities. She failed her entrance exam. She was too nervous sharing the exam venue with me. He suddenly asked, if it were you, would you be nervous? Jianxing said she was unsure. After some thought, she added, probably not. Why? Zhang Bishan asked. Jianxing said, perhaps everyone gets nervous for different reasons. Zhang Bishan smiled, I suppose. Why did she still end up this way? Jianxing was quite curious. Shouldn't she cherish being close to the person she had yearned after for so long? I don't know. Perhaps her idealization of me was too strong. Only after getting together did she realize that I wasn't as good as she imagined, Zhang Bishan said. In addition, a relationship between two people isn't the same as a one-sided crush. There's always friction in a couple, petty quarrels, irrational suspicions, and even disputes over whether there is equal investment in the relationship. Furthermore, we were originally in a situation of unequal devotion. It wasn't surprising that we ended up here. Zhang Bishan suddenly looked away as he spoke. It seemed like he didn't dare to look at Jianxing, yet he felt compelled to say these words. Sometimes having no outcome might be the best outcome, said Jianxing. If things went south, the good times we shared might just cease to exist. No response but a question from Jianxing. Why didn't she break up? Maybe she invested too much in me and choosing to break up would confuse her. It's a struggle between saying goodbye to the person or the energy and time she spent over the years, I answered. Jianxing said, that's your thoughts, not hers. With a smile, Zhang Baishen replied, what else could it be? Should I ask her why she no longer likes me after all these years of affection? Jianxing fell silent. There's no point asking why, Zhang Baishen continued. Liking someone can be an instantaneous feeling. Do you even know your own reasons? In fact, No Jianxing has always believed her feelings for Xu Zhengqing to be somewhat abnormal. The encounter during adolescence was the moment when she felt a sense of favoritism for him, different from others. One look, and he took root in her mind. Yet she often felt unworthy, her illicit past constantly grinding on her fondness, guilt and self-blame intertwining and multiplying. The repressed affection thus seemed insignificant. Perhaps this was her debt. Not long after Jianxing's departure, the bookstore's door opened again. Zhang Baishen closed his eyes, thinking that Jianxing had returned, said dismissively, absent-mindedly leaving things behind, you're doomed one day. What are you doing here, introducing yourself? A young voice replied with laughter. Recognizing the voice, Zhang Baishen turned to gaze. Instead of enjoying your time at home, Xu Zhengqing, what brings you here? With a nod, Xu replied, I'm afraid if I don't see you now, I might not have the chance later. Get lost. Zhang Baishen cursed. Still here? Got your paycheck from uncle yet? You are quite diligent, Xu Zhengqing laughed. What do you know? Zhang Baishen laid back down. This is my happy place. You're insane. Xu Zhengqing laughed off his comment, then moved towards the bookshelf, surprised to find all books that he had read. Gradually, he began noticing the notes. Turning another book, he froze at a line where everyone's little prince trailed behind a rose. But in his sentence, it was a bunny that trailed behind. He studied the handwriting carefully and reached for another book. Only after flipping through a few pages, he saw a moon drawn next to the sentence, "I saw the moon." Hanging next to the moon was a small rabbit. Amused by these hidden treasures, he found himself smiling, charmed. So that book list for his sister had another intention, he thought amusingly. Hearing the noise, Zhang Baishen asked, "What are you fantasizing over?" Xu Zhengqing closed the book and placed it back, carelessly retorted, "Got any manners? Be careful, or I will report you." Undeterred by his usually casual chat with Xu Zhengqing, Zhang Baishen pressed on, "What are you really looking at?" Glancing at him, Xu Zhengqing paused before saying mysteriously, "Girls are always poetic." And then, Zhang Baishen persisted. "No more." Xu Zhengqing moved towards the counter. "Let's clean up and go have a meal. And get a haircut, you lazy ass." Seeing Xu Zhengqing not doing anything suspicious, Zhang Baishen reluctantly agreed and rose from his place. "I'm going to take a shower." "Okay," Xu Zhengqing confirmed. As a cat approached the door, Xu Zhengqing opened the door slightly and poured some cat food on the floor. Seeing this, Zhang Baishen was reminded of the day when Jianxing did the same thing. He paused, suddenly called out, "Zhengqing." "Yes?" Xu Zhengqing answered without turning around. Zhang Baishen fell silent once more, recalling the first time he saw Jianxing, how she was trying to mask her feelings cautiously. After all, it was her issue. After a long pause, Zhang Baishen seemed to breathe a sigh of relief in his heart. "Never mind." Hearing this, Xu Zhengqing turned and asked, "What's never mind?" Zhang Baishen shook his head, humming a line softly as he walked towards the restroom. "Hide in a quiet corner. Don't need you to look back." Jianxing spent the entire summer vacation in Zhang Bishan's bookstore, only realizing near the start of the new term that her medication was about to run out. Chen Yunbei seemed to be even more concerned about this matter than she was. Before leaving, he called and asked her, "Are you almost out of medicine?" Jianxing replied honestly, "Almost." Without any hesitation, Chen Yunbei said, "Then I'll go to the hospital with you again in the afternoon." Considering the price of the medication, Jianxing hesitated and said, "I feel like I've been in good shape lately. Can I stop for a while?" Before Chen Yunbei could reply, Zhang Bishan emerged from somewhere, a lollipop in his mouth, leaning against a nearby bookshelf and said, "Concerning stopping the medication, I suggest you follow the doctor's advice." Jianxing was shocked. Through the phone, Chen Yunbei asked, "Who is there with you?" "Just a friend," Jianxing casually responded. "I'll call you back later." After she ended the call, she looked at Zhang Bishan. Apparently, Zhang Bishan felt no guilt eavesdropping. He walked up to a nearby table, casually pulling over a chair and sitting down while asking, "Which hospital prescribed them?" With lips pressed tight, Jianxing finally answered, "The county hospital." "That's good. I have plenty of connections that I could use for you," Zhang Bishan followed up. "What's the severity?" Instead of answering, Jianxing counter-questioned, "How do you know?" Zhang Bishan extended his hand. "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to." Jianxing did not ask further. She simply said, "Moderately severe." To this, Zhang Bishan was surprised, raising an eyebrow as he commented, "That's impressive." Jianxing could tell he was mocking her but chose to ignore it. Zhang Bishan chuckled, casually chatting, "It must be expensive, isn't it?" Jianxing felt he was being sarcastic. Still, strangely enough, his attitude didn't embarrass her. Upon reflection, she realized that she might feel uncomfortable if Zhang Bishan started to be overly cautious and avoidant around her because of her condition. He still treated her as a normal person. He respected her. In the afternoon, Jianxing went to the county hospital with Chen Yunbei, with Zhang Bishan accompanying them. As soon as Zhang Bishan stepped through the hospital doors, Jianxing knew his statement about having a bunch of back doors here wasn't exaggerated. His acquaintances seemed to be everywhere. It was as if every person in a white coat who was of a certain age turned out to be his uncle, aunt, or any relation. Occasionally, he even had the audacity to adopt a few children as his goddaughters. Every time Jianxing visited the hospital, her mood was very heavy. It wasn't the kind of heaviness like a stone hanging on the heart, but a sinking feeling, like being stuck in a swamp, slowly sinking no matter whether she moved or not. Only this time, she could see the clear sky and the thick clouds above her head. She suddenly had a kind of relief, like breaking out of the ground. The road ahead may be long, but she believed she could catch up to it. "That's it. I've made an appointment in advance. You can walk right in." At the door of the consultation room, Zhang Bishan told Jianxing. Suddenly, Jianxing felt anxious. The last time she came here, she was in ignorance but remained calm without any ripples. At that time she thought, no matter what the result was, she would accept it. But this time she was nervous. Because she had anticipation. Because she wanted to recover. How have you been recently? Sleeping well? How is your appetite? Do you have dreams? How about your concentration? And your memory? The last question was, have any bad things happened in your life? Jianxing paused for a moment, glancing outside. The weather was good but still hot, so the window was closed. The doctor probably had a grandson or a granddaughter, as there was a flower drawn on the window with a crayon. Jianxing turned her gaze back and said, no, the whole process went smoothly, and getting the medicine was smooth too. It didn't cost much. The money saved by Jianxing on usual days was enough, but just enough for this time. However, Jianxing was already relieved. She was too afraid that her life would affect Chen Yanbei. After all, it was hard enough for Chen Yanbei to escape from hardship. Come and see me next time, Zhang Baishen said. Jianxing asked, aren't you leaving? Zhang Baishen asked back, where should I go? Jianxing asked, are you going to continue suspending your studies? Chen Yanbei showed interest at this. Can you suspend your studies in college? You need a guardian certificate, Zhang Baishen said, dissuading all of Chen Yanbei's thoughts. It's boring. Chen Yanbei stretched lazily and leaned against the side. Zhang Baishen laughed and said to Jianxing, whether I continue depends on my old man's opinion, but even if I leave, I can take care of your thing. Jianxing didn't care whether Zhang Baishen treated her as a friend or saw her as an ex-girlfriend's shadow, but for all his behaviors she said, thank you. Zhang Baishen casually said, don't mention it. After the remedial classes ended for a few days, each school's section ended at the same time. Jianxing knew the timing of Jianru's clear graduation of her Zhong, so she didn't take the risk to go out anymore. She waited for school to start at home every day. A week before school started, Chen Yanbei returned to school. Before returning, she called Jianxing out for dinner. She was in a good mood, always talking about the matter of upgrading from a vocational school to a university. Chen Yanbei, who graduated from junior high school, attended vocational school for 3 years. In the second year, she could choose to take the university entrance exam. Jianxing said, that's pretty good. Where do you want to apply? I can only apply within the province, Chen Yanbei said. I plan to apply to Lucheng. It's conveniently located and traveling to other places will be convenient in the future. It will also be convenient to find you. Jianxing chuckled. How do you know where I am going? That's why I am opting for Lucheng. After all, it is the provincial capital, with high-speed rail and planes available. It's convenient to go anywhere. Jianxing lowered her head, poked the noodles in her bowl and said, I'm going to the north. Sure? Chen Yanbei asked, which school do you want to apply to? North Communication. Jianxing paused, then changed her words, or South Arts. Chen Yanbei said, either is fine, apply wherever you want. Jianxing smiled and nodded. The first week of school, Jianxing saw Zhang Baishen in the playground. Zhang Baishen was alone in the exercise area, leaning against the horizontal bar playing with his phone. Jianxing told Linjia, then went over. She patted Zhang Baishen's shoulder from behind. Zhang Baishen said without turning his head, I've been waiting for you for several laps. You still have the nerve to pat me. Jianxing came to his front. You're waiting for me? Or what? Zhang Baishen put his phone in his pocket without taking his hand back out and said, I'm going back to school next week. Jianxing said, congratulations. Zhang Baishen chuckled. For a medical student, returning to school is not something to be congratulated. Do you like medicine? Jianxing asked. Zhang Baishen glanced at her. Nonsense. Do I look like someone who would sacrifice his own interests for the family business? Jianxing said, then it's fine. I was congratulating you because you like it. Zhang Baishen was taken aback, then laughed and said, indeed, both earnest appreciation and extreme partiality deserve to be respected. They were talking about personal preferences, but Jianxing thought of Xu Zhengqing. She felt a little embarrassed because it seems that in public opinion, love should be a few points shallower than ideal ambitions. But she can't help it. On the way back, Jianxing ran into Qin Jiming in front of the teaching building. Qin Jiming was walking arm in arm with Zhang Zi. Seeing her, he shouted, look at you, you've gained weight. Zhang Zi nudged Qin Jiming's stomach with his elbow and said, do you know how to talk? Who calls someone fat when they meet them? Qin Jiming retorted, you know nothing. My father hopes she can eat up to 180 lbs. Jianxing immediately replied. No need to go that far. Qin Jiming tutted. How rude. Jianxing laughed. Why are you still not in class? Isn't it your senior year? I'm heading in, replied Qin Jiming. Oh, by the way, do you need a test paper? After they're distributed in my class, I can get an extra for you. Jianxing agreed. As soon as her voice fell, a voice suddenly came from behind. What test paper? Jianxing's back went numb, but she couldn't resist turning around immediately. A week had passed since the start of the term, but Xu Zhengqing hadn't returned to school. He was said to have participated in a model airplane competition. Last time they met was when Jianru and Levi Cheng divorced. Glancing at Xu Zhengqing, Jianxing called out in a rigid tone, Monitress. Xu Zhengqing gave a smile. Long time no see. Jianxing gave a forced smile. She probably could never be as carefree and natural as he was. Qin Jiming hadn't seen Xu Zhengqing in a long time. Knowing that Xu Zhengqing had first gone to the south for his summer vacation, he joked, Heard you've been to the ends of the earth? Isn't it boring to go alone? Zhang Zi joined in. What do you know? His space was shared with others, okay? Xu Zhengqing just smiled and didn't refute. Jianxing also laughed. She laughed bitterly from the bottom of her heart, unbeknownst to others. During the evening self-study session, Zhou Qi announced that this year, 2010, the 89th anniversary of the Communist Party's establishment, all students in the school would watch a movie. For the sophomores, it was scheduled for this Friday afternoon, one screening room for every 3 classes. To prevent any mishaps, Zhou Qi asked Xu Zhengqing to collect everyone's contact information. For efficiency, Xu Zhengqing handed out a piece of paper, starting with the person on the left to fill in, and then passed it on to the last. By the time the paper got to Jianxing, it was already filled with mobile and landline numbers. Jianxing glanced at the script and silently memorized the 11 digits. That night, Jianxing lay on the bed, unable to shake off the numbers from her mind. After much deliberation, she eventually typed the string of digits into her contacts. The remark was just a single word. On Friday afternoon, the whole class was seated in the cinema according to the arrangement. There were a lot of people. Each class had a designated area to sit. Jianxing had gone quite early, but she was delayed due to a last-minute trip to the bathroom and had to settle for a seat by the aisle. The lights in the screening room had already been turned off. Jianxing looked around and realized that all the people nearby were from class 2. It was not good to stand up now, so Jianxing chose to sit quietly. During the movie trailers, a figure suddenly passed in her peripheral vision. Before Jianxing could react, someone lightly tapped her shoulder. She turned her head and saw Xu Zhengqing's face in the darkness. Startled, Jianxing asked, What's up? Xu Zhengqing bent over slightly and whispered, Can you move one seat over? It's inconvenient for me to go to our designated area right now. I'll just sit here. Jianxing immediately stiffened and moved to the side. As soon as she sat down, the person next to her leaned over. Jianxing went blank. She stared straight at the big screen with her eyes wide open, her attention fainting on the person beside her. He turned his head towards her, asking, Do you want some water? The warmth of his youthful scent drifted over, hitting the side of Jianxing's face. For a moment, it felt as if every fine root under her thin skin had exploded. She dared not turn her neck. She could not remember what she said, only knowing that a bottle of water magically appeared in her hand at some point. After the movie that night, the teacher asked them to write their impressions. Sitting at her desk at home, Jianxing held her pen for quite a while, only managing to write one sentence. Every burning moment that is ingrained in my heart. It is only and all about you.